Okay, so this is episode 35. I would like to say Selamat Pagi, which is like good morning, Bakabar, which is like how are you doing, and bye, which is good. I'm good, hope you're good. I'm kind of on this little back walkway. I have my mask in my pocket for all the people who write me, but there's no one here. Um, but a lot of people ask me, what do I need to budget to travel full time? How much money do I need to travel full time? So I'm gonna throw out a number. Now, I don't travel, this is not my budget, but I have traveled on this budget before. So we're gonna say on $1,200 a month. This is gonna be how you can travel the world. I'm gonna break it down for you guys. I just went and got a new iPad to really, it's really fun. I'm playing around with it. It's been a while. I left my other one in France. So I thought we'll go to the drawing board. And in this drawing board, I'm gonna break it down and explain to you guys how you can travel. We're gonna use a budget of $1,200, but you can put your own budget in here and just find the percentage of it because the rules still apply. So on that note, we're going to the drawing board, and this is how to travel the world full time, and how to travel the world, or I don't know what I'm gonna title it, or travel the world on $1,200 a month. How much do you need to travel the world full time? I don't know what I named it, but we're going to the drawing board. And let me know what you think about it. It's something new that I'm trying, but would love to hear from you guys. And whatever you guys would like to see drawn next, let me know, because I'm having fun with it. So going to the drawing board. I'd like to welcome you guys to the drawing board. How to travel the world on a budget. I know, don't talk about my handwriting or laugh about it, whatever. It's cool. I'm a fan of imperfections. But basically, I want to take this time to really show you guys how to travel the world on a budget, okay? And I say a budget because that doesn't mean you have to have $0. It just means you have to have a set amount that you want to travel the world on. I always tell people this is the magic number, I think. That's a very low budget, but I think that that's doable. $1,200. So we'll say $1,200. But understand, there's some people that they need to travel with more. Some people need to travel with less. But I'm going to show you how to travel on $1,200. And more importantly, when you're traveling on this, the same percentages apply. The same percentages of what you're about to learn right now is going to apply to if you double this. So you can make this times 2. And let's say you have a budget of $2,400 a month. That it still applies. You take the percentage of what I'm showing you right now and you apply it and you are good to go. Check. Okay, so let's get into it. So you have a budget, no matter what your budget is, your number one expense is, we'll start with it now. Lodging. Where you're gonna stay, basically. This is your biggest price when you're traveling. So when I'm traveling, the lower you can get where you stay at, the more money it frees up to do, obviously, other things. So even before with the budget, everyone wants to know what you spend a month. I don't like to go that route. I like to break it down per day. How much are you going to spend per day? If you have a budget of $1,200, that's $40. That's $40 a day that you get to spend. Some days is going to be more, some days are going to be less. But at the end of it, you know what your daily is. So you might lose track of your monthly. You might lose track of that, but you'll always know what your day is, which is $40. If someone gave me $40 a day, I could travel the world nonstop. So to get started, your lodging is this is your biggest expense. So when people saw me staying, I don't know the future of this in 2020, but many people saw me staying in hostels. The reason why I stayed in hostels because I had more money for other things. If this was my budget, if my budget was $40. Personally, before I started traveling, I said to set a budget of $50 a day. I don't think there's anywhere on the planet where I could be except maybe Scandinavia, where if you gave me $50 a day, I couldn't survive. So hostels, the reason why I stayed in hostels was because I could stay in a hostel from anywhere between $3 to, $20 a night, which obviously gave me $20 for other things. Now, like I say, as a disclaimer alert, this is not my budget, okay? But I've done trips where this was my budget for the month. I had $1,200. That's what I wanted to spend that month. Now, everyone travels different, but so if you can understand that your biggest expense, probably half of your expense. So as I said, the percentage of this, there's a big percentage, or your percentage of your daily, there is a percent. So you can see your lodging can be up to like 50% of where you stay at. So you can see why someone who has $2,400 that they want to spend as a budget will go to a place that is maybe 40, and you're still in budget. You're still good, because if you double that, your daily is $80. Okay, so your number one is lodging. Number two that I always tell people is your food, because I think when you're traveling, if you get these two things taken care of, then you're good to go. So if you can make your budget of let's say $10, like you can eat for $10. That's $10. But maybe you want to eat for more. So let's bump it up. Let's just say +5 because you went to that one place. And maybe that's all you do. You kind of walk around, you sit around with your friends, you spend $35. This is how I always look at things. You spend $35 this day. Okay? Now, this is saying a high price hostel. I don't know how hostels are going to be in the future, but this is a high hostel. Usually when I was traveling, my average for a hostel was around $10. So when you see me in a city for 10 days, I've spent $100 to stay there. So when you see that, if you've kept this low, because this is your biggest expense, usually it's 50% a lot of times. If you can keep, for example, 10, and I spend 15 on food, that's only 25. I got like $15 left. Now, I like to do two things. Now, this is through budget travel. I like to have two kinds of days, okay? And this is like two kinds of days. This will really help you out, okay? And this was older version of me who really had strict budgets when I was traveling. So there's two kinds of days. There is rich days and poor days. And I used to mix them up a lot, okay? So when I say a rich day, I mean that you can kind of go, well, let's start with a poor day, okay? It's not about the terminology of poor and rich. It's just one you spend more, one you spend less, okay? So let's just call this the lower spending day, and this is the upper spending day. So what you can do is you can cut costs one day. Like, I'm going to cook, which is not going to cost me $15 or $20 to eat. It's going to cost me $5 today. And my hostel is $10. So I spent $15 that day. Maybe I want to go out and have a couple drinks. That's going to cost another, maybe $5 if you're eating and chilling on the street places like south of Spain is very good for that. On this day right here, you've got +20. And what's cool about having a day like this kind of day when you have +20, now you have +20 for your rich day, which is the next day. And this is a tactic that I use and I talk to a lot of people, which I'm giving you guys right here. So on that rich day, now you've got 60 and you're not over budget. So this is how I was able to save a lot of money a lot of times when I was traveling, because when you can cut this cost of your lodging, then that kills it. That's amazing. So what you can do when you're traveling, I know this looks crazy if you're just joining, but if you've been watching it for a long time, then you'll understand. But if you can have like rich day, poor days, this means $60 you've got for the next day. So 60. And imagine you have 2 days like that in a row. That's +20 more dollars that you have. That's 20. That's $80. That's $80 for a rich day where I would spoil myself. Now, I still stayed in a hostel. I didn't raise that price. So because I was only paying a little bit to stay in a hostel, I got $80 now for the day. So 10 goes to the hostel where I was staying at. So I've got $70 for the day. Now $70, and I still probably, a lot of times I ate the same. So it only cost me $10 to eat. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to go to another place for dinner. That's another $10. On that day, I got 30. I've only spent 30. I've got 10 more bucks for that rich day because I still didn't top it. So my budget for that day, for that rich day was 70. I spent 30. And my original was $40 for the day. So I've got an extra 10 on top of that. So for your rich day, you didn't even pass your average for the day right here. So now you got 10. You got $80 for a rich day. That's $80 in the surplus. So these are times when I go out or I do something, but for me, I kept this. I'll show you. I kept this as my baseline. Is where I stayed at. For me, that was the number one choice. Now, I know there's a lot of other things that come up that a lot of you guys can probably think of right now. What about transport? Okay, I understand. What about maybe tourist activities? Now, when I was traveling the world, these I just found ways to get good deals on these. Like with who I was, with my influence, I was able to not have to pay so much for this. But for me, I found that the key when you're traveling is to keep is to keep this down right here. The lower that I kept my lodging and where I stayed at, the more I would travel. And I could give you my logic for that. So let's just take this as my accommodation, okay? My accommodation. So for me, the way I looked at it, because people always ask why I stayed in hostels. Number one was because I had more money for other things. More money for other things, okay? Number two is I'm traveling, so I don't plan on being there. I don't plan on being in the accommodation. I think there's an A there. I don't know how to spell accommodation. I wasn't planning on being there. I would go to hostels just to, wow, my writing is so bad, to sleep. That's it. So I'm really stressing that to you because the lower you got that where you stayed at, the more you had for other things. And this is a big concept right here that I applied a lot. So when I would have a day where I'd go over, because maybe you have a rich day, but you haven't budgeted out. So maybe your budget is still $40 a day. And you just decide one day to be like, oh my gosh, I had a long night. I spent $70. I'm negative 30 in the hole for my budget. But you know your next day is 40. So the next day you can say, okay, I'm only going to spend 20 this day. Okay. That gives me a surplus that day of 20, which offsets that. So now you're only minus 10 in the hole for the next day that you go in. So let's say the next day you spend $30 again. You've got a surplus of 20. You've got plus 20 for a rich day. And understand this plus 20 goes on top of whatever your budget is. So it's not that you have $20 for the next day. You've got $60 for the next day. So you can understand when you're traveling, what I would do is my little tactic was go to a very small city where the price of everything was really low. And because it was really low, I was able to add up money. I had more rich days. But for me, travel didn't have to do with money for me. So with these rich days that I had, these were just sitting in the bank, meaning I wasn't using it. So every day I was probably plus 20 because I only maybe spent $20 that day. And now this is not my budget. Like when I was traveling Europe a while, like a lot of times mine would be like 2,000, 2,400. It depends. Like there's a lot of different budgets. I've had all kinds of budgets from 1,000 to 2, 3, 4,000. But this is just an example. Everything is an example off of this budget right here. This $1,200 budget, okay? So the more rich days I had meant more money that I had at the end of the month. So this is how I looked at it. Let's say you combine just like 4 days where I would just cook at home. Those days were great for my mind. They were great for my mind because I thought my body was invincible because I felt like that I was Superman. So I didn't really need to rest so much. But on these rich days, I combined a bunch of I call them poorer days. 5 of them in a row. Plus 20, plus 20. Every day, it was like I was making $20 off of the budget that I had set. So you can see at the end of 5 days of something that was great for my mind, I just ate locally, really cooked my own food. At the end of all that, I got an extra $100 for a rich day. Now, I could go back and if the person who I am now, I wouldn't call them rich days and poor days. I would call them something about just spoiling days. Okay, so let's call them spoil days and chill days. So the more chill days you have, the more money you have for a spoil day. And all this is off of your $1,200 budget. Now, I know what you're thinking. Luke, what about flights? This is something huge. You didn't talk about the price of flights. When I'm traveling, my average cost, and now in 2020, it's a lot different, but my average cost of flights were maybe about $40, $50. I got some flights for $2. I got some flights for $80. So if you're coming from America, that might seem really crazy. Like, that's impossible, Luke. But no, it's not. It's very possible. I flew for $2. I flew from Warsaw to Stockholm for $2.13. I remember. Because I got a Pepsi on the flight, and the Pepsi was $4. It was twice the price of my flight, almost. So you can understand when you're budgeting like this. But the thing is, when you're traveling full time, you have Freedom. This is the big word. Because you have that freedom, now when you see the flight on Monday is $100, you say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait. And you see, oh, in 3 days, it's 30. And you wait the 3 days. So you can imagine if you waited 3 days, you'd save $70. On top of the $70, if you had those days as poor days, or you were in a small city where the prices of everything is lower, you got $100 extra that you've made. So let's say you're waiting for a flight, small city or a good budget in a big city, you got $100 extra, plus you've saved $70 here. For me, in my mind, I was like, I'm plus 170. In my mind, this is what I'm thinking. So because when you're full-time, you don't think the same as other people. You go to places, for example, in most countries in Europe, this is the big day. Monday. For example, in Barcelona, in Paris, all these, on Mondays, the museums are free. Because now you can wait around for the deals because you're not constricted to be anywhere. So you understand, by having a small budget of $1,200, and you understand that, okay, 50% is for to sleep. And this is what I looked at it. I didn't look at it as a place where I'm going to relax and chill. I love to be around people. So I lowered that percentage. My percentage was around 20% of what my budget was to sleep. Because that's all I did there was sleep. That's it. And then a lot of times when I'm traveling, you're meeting people, you have freedom. So what I would do is I'm like, okay, I met some people. I'm staying with them for 3 days. Now and I didn't really spend any money. I bought the food for everyone, but I'm not paying this at all. So this is canceled out. I'm not even paying it because I met some cool people. I'm staying with them. And I'm buying their food because now I have extra money to buy their food. I'm not paying whatever it is, $10 a night. I'm not paying that now. So I got your food. I got you. No problem. I got your food. No problem. So this is kind of how you budget. And the biggest thing I want you to take away from here is this right here. The rich days and poor days. So I used to beat myself up when I just spent way too much than what my budget was. Didn't mean I didn't have the money, but I had a budget set and I wanted to stick to it. And I'd have days like this. And I got to a point where you don't even have to think about it. I knew that if I overspend on 2 days in a row, then I'm going to have maybe 3 days where I chill. That's it. Now, this is with this budget, and I know maybe you don't think it's really complete or anything like that, but this has really helped me. These are formulas that I use because because people don't understand, when you're traveling full-time versus part-time, there's a big difference between this. When you're traveling part-time, you are under the pressure of time. Also, you probably have a higher budget. Because you have a price on time, you don't have the opportunity to find good deals because you don't have the time. Time is important. If you don't have the time, if you can't wait till next Tuesday to fly somewhere, then how are you going to get the deals? Okay? So this is a huge mentality difference. I could go all into that. So you have the time, deals, so your price is higher. Normally it's higher. And you don't have also the seasons. You have 2 seasons. You have peak season and the off season or off-peak season. Where in peak season, and I'm not even joking, you're going to think I'm joking, the prices sometimes, like in a place like Ibiza or Mallorca or Rome and Paris, it can be 3 times the price. 3 times the price. In the off season, it's nothing. So I used to stay at a hostel, for example, in Barcelona. I was paying $7 at St. Christopher's Hostel. Oh, excuse me. Wait, hold on 1 second. So I was paying about $7 in the off season. It was $7.90, I remember. Or at the most, it was $10. I remember because my friends worked there, and that would be the price. And this was an off season, so this was like, I don't know, October to maybe March or April. So this was the price. In the peak season, that same room, $35. And take in consideration New Year's, because New Year's, the price there was, I think it was like 60 on the 31st. But this is the normal price. This is during the peak season. So if you guys notice, when I traveled this summer, I stayed out of mainland Europe when it was during peak season. Because I go to another place, I was in Eastern Europe, place like this where this was the price. What people don't know is when I was in, for example, Bulgaria, it cost me like $6 a night to stay in the hostel. And it had free breakfast and dinner. So you can see how you're limited when you're traveling part-time. It's a totally different mentality when you're traveling full-time. Now, when you're traveling full-time, you have time. Here you don't. That's a minus sign. Full-time, you have time. So because you have time, you can find the good deals. If you meet some people, you stay with them. You can stay as long as you want to. You can go to places based on the peak versus off-peak season. And that saves you a lot of money. And these are just the little things that when you're traveling, it's so important. It's why full-time travel is much different. You can make the budget much lower full-time traveling. If you're traveling just for a week, you don't have options. And in life, everyone loves to have options. And when you're traveling full-time, the biggest benefit of full-time travel is you have plenty of options. So I hope this helped you guys out. A lot of people asked, and if you're super interested, I can send you this little document right here. But this is kind of the thing. So at the end of the day, what are the takeaways from here? The percentages, they stay the same, no matter the budget. The percentages are usually the same. And back when I was budget traveling, I really would sacrifice for the next day a lot of times. Or if I got off track, if I had a mistake here, I would just fix it up the next day. Or offset it. I know, for example, when you're traveling, you know that you can get a good deal to a country that's pretty cheap. So you know you can have a lot of days like this, and you'll make it up by staying in a cheaper place, but the quality can still be nice. And you know, every day you're making $30 on your budget. For example, Ukraine, where it was hard for me to even spend $20 on food a day. Or you come to Bali where you can spend $5 on food a day. This is the main thing to remember. And I hope this helped you guys out. I know this might have been kind of long, but that's how to travel the world on $1,200 a day. Now, I know there's a lot of other stuff like, Luke, what about medical insurance and all this? This is taking into consideration that you took care of that stuff before, like buying clothes and all that stuff. This is just when you've got your necessities covered, and that's the main thing I'd say. So on that note, I hope this helped you guys out. If it did, please maybe give a thumbs up or a check, or even better, leave me a comment. I read all the comments. What do you want to see next? Let me know. And on that note, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. This is something new I'm trying on my new iPad, and I just love to provide value, and this is fun for me. So let me know what you guys want to see next, or how you like this, how you found it, if I explained it decently. And on that note, I'll speak to you guys all later. And everyone always remember to work hard, be brave, and don't forget to smile. Ciao.